In this video, I'm going to talk about how we can negotiate with the Hong Kong government on neighborhood issues. When we investigate different programs and policies of the Hong Kong government, they are not necessarily neighborhood issues. It could be some more important issues like how we as a city should prepare for the sea level rise or how we can reduce the solid waste for the entire city. There are bigger issues. But in this video, I'm going to mainly talk about neighborhood issues. So that's the issues at a more local level. It probably only affect a relatively small number of people, maybe 2,000 people or 10,000 people, rather than the entire population of Hong Kong. So another way to think about this is how to serve the community as a counselor. And that can be very interesting because usually the counselors are the people who will offer advice to the government on this kind of local neighborhood. But of course, we are at this stage of the government is still trying to what to do with the councils because back in 2019 during the social unrest there's the council election and a lot of pro-democratic or pro-protest people were elected into the council and later they resigned. Obviously, the government is thinking about what to do with this upcoming election on the councils and how the whole process of consulting the community might change in our society. So we still don't know, but I think it would be useful to think a little bit about how you're going to serve in the council, how you're going to get the government to better serve the community. Because I get the intuition and the impression that the district councillors they are quite powerful when it comes to negotiating with the government. The government will show up in their meetings and answer some questions, but beyond that, there's really not much power for the council or councillors to actually pressure the government to do anything. I guess one thing that I'm trying to do here is to figure out a way that ordinary citizens of Hong Kong, including the council members, could pressure the government more effectively on big neighborhood issues. All right, so that's what I intend to do in this video seminar. Now, I want to share with you a story. Okay, it's the story of a rain shelter in Taipo. Right, so this is where I live. I live in Science Park, and every day I take the minibus 27A to commute from Science Park to Sha Station, and then from Sha I will take the MTR to, and then I go to BU for work. So that's like my daily routine. And as you can see here, this is the minibus pole right here, and then this is a rain shelter. Okay, and this is a rain shelter built through the minor work program, all right, which is one of the programs funded by the Hong Kong government. And at the very beginning, when I look at that shelter, I thought it's a new bus stop, so I just wrote an email back in May this year and I said, okay, so there's a new bus stop. I asked them when it will be in use because it's not in use. And also, I want to know when it was started so I can track how much time it would take to actually get the bus stop ready for use before between when it was first constructed. Okay, so that was my question. But then they wrote back and they said, actually, this is a project done by Affairs Department, not for department. And also, they said the rain shelter is only built for weather protection for all pedestrians in general and not specifically for the minibus or bus users. So that I think is a huge mistake. This is where all the problem arise is because at the very beginning when they leave this project, they didn't really think about how to better serve the bus or minibus passengers. They only think about the pedestrians in general to protect some kind of weather protection for them. That is really absurd because who is going to sit there to use that rain shelter other than if they're waiting for a bus or minibuses? So I think this is the problem from the very beginning. If done properly, if more consultation was done, then perhaps people would tell them, okay, there's no point to build a rain shelter other than it's for bus stops or minibus stops. Okay, but and then they said, okay, so they reviewed the possibility of relocating the starting point of the transport routes to the rain shelter, which is exactly what I am trying to accomplish, is to move this pole all the way to over here. Okay, because if we move it over here, then people would start using the rain shelter when waiting for minibus. So sometimes the rain can be really heavy, or even during the sunny days, we want some protection against the sun. So that would be very helpful. But the transport department was saying the buses or minibuses will not be able to stop properly, and so they the room is limited to avoid causing action. So this is actually their reasoning. They think the pole should not be moved, should not be relocated. And then they asked me to approach the Home Affairs Department. And then I start writing to the Home Affairs Department. I said I want to get more information. So one thing that's really important is actually I did a little bit of research because I know it's the minor work. So I to the web page, but then I was not able to find the record. Maybe I didn't look through all the records. This is a very important point. Before you contact the government for any information, you want to do a lot your homework. You know what you're talking about, and you can refer to pages or links that you have found. Right, so that's really important. And then I basically point out that the minibus stop is located next to the rain shelter. But even when the weather is rainy, passengers have to wait without a shelter even there's a structure nearby. So I asked them for some comments whether it's reasonable to merge the rain shelter with the minibus stop. So this is the idea. This is a main theme that we can find in all the projects we're doing. It's basically we're imagining a better world. We don't want to get stuck with the status quo. We want to our community in ways that we can. And then I asked them to I'd like to access all the documents related to this particular rain shelter because I really have no idea what kind of things are available. So I like to know the proposal, the budget, any other info such as the number of people to benefit. They didn't provide, I don't think they provide information like number of people to benefit. Anyway, and then I get a little bit more aggressive here. I said I'd like to know the identity of the staff responsible for the project and offer them an opportunity to explain the just to build a shelter right next to minibus stop where minibus passengers cannot benefit. And then I will decide if the case could be brought to the ombudsman and the legislative council for further investigation. So I think these are the kind of toolkits that anybody, very citizens or residents in Hong Kong can use. All you have to do is just contact the ombudsman or even the legislative council redress system, and so that's like a threat to the civil servants in the Home Affairs departments. And I think it worked to some extent because later on they call me and we had a conversation on the phone and blah blah blah. So this is a reply from the Home Affairs Department. They said this is the rain shelter was conducted. So I suspect this is actually there's three rain shelters being built through one project. So this is one of the three rain shelters that's being built. Okay, and there's all the information here. I think I should be able to share with you. So let me see. Anyway, okay, so yeah, let's just go back. All right, and then they provide more information saying that, well, actually, the intention was to locate it closer, but then they found some cable underground, so they have to shift further. So offer some kind of explanation here, which again, even if we cannot change the location of the rain shelter, I think we can still move the minibus pole or minibus stop over. So I think that's the solution right there. And they also provide a little bit more information. So this is basically the rain shelters. There are three rain shelters. The total cost is over 3 million Hong Kong dollars. I have no background in engineering, so I don't know how reasonable the cost is. That could be a different project. Anyway, and then I start to contact the council, and basically I asked again, it's the Home Affairs Department because Home Affairs Department serve as the secretariat for the district council. They provide all the administrative support for the council. So I contact the chairman of the district council, who is also the chairman for this committee, Mr. Moore, Patrick, and he wrote back and basically saying, I have inspected the site and agree that the current situation is not ideal. To this end, I will contact the minibus company and ask the minibus company to relocate the minibus station. So I get some support from the counselor, but again, and in the end, this is also a test how much the district council can do, the district councilors can do to kind of pressure the government or the minibus company to make the move. All right. Yeah. So you can probably check out the information of this council members here. So he's the chairman of the Typo council. All right. Okay. And then in early October, Mr. Neil Down wrote a letter in the South China Morning Post talking about rain shelter. Okay, and he was actually talking about a different rain shelter, but that is it's very close. It's in the same neighborhood, so I suspect Mr. Deng also lives in the neighborhood. But anyway, his point was that there needs to be more coordination. For department, councils should all working together, and they should start with. Okay, when you read a letter like this, you jump to the opportunity to follow up, right? So I decided to join the conversation. A few days later, I got my letter published on rain shelter again. So I was talking about this, basically this is a rain shelter, and I've been communicating with the council regarding another rain shelter in the area. So that's basically the story sharing. And also Patrick Moore has inspected the site, asked that the minibus stop to be relocated. But see, one thing you have to remember is that South China Morning Post is a newspaper for the entire city and also for the international community. So if you only write about the specific rain shelter, a particular rain shelter, then the editor would question whether or not this letter is significant enough publishing in the newspaper for the entire city. So that's why I start to broaden the discussion here. We don't just focus on this particular rain shelter, but instead I want to talk about all the 608 rain shelters. So if you go to the website, you found that there's over 600 rain shelters in Hong Kong built through that minor work program. And then I propose a solution, which is all the geospatial data of the bus stops and minibus stops and also the rain shelters can be released through data.gov. So once the data is released, then we can write a program to the rain shelter, the distance between the rain shelter and the nearby bus stop or mini bus stop. If there's a relatively short distance, then there's the opportunity for optimization, right? So again, it's not possible to move the rain shelter, but at least we might be able to relocate the bus stop or mini bus stop. So I think this is a very important strategy here is we our discussion with a neighborhood issue which is more localized, but then we want to try a broader, more important issue that's applicable to different parts of Hong Kong. And then our case and our argument would become more important, right? So that would be a fairly important strategy here. Okay. And in October, late October, okay, so I got another email from the transport department, and so they basically said they have to review the possible impact on the traffic, as mentioned in our reply back in June 8th. Cannot be stopped. But then because there's this chair from the council chairman and also Home Affairs Department, they still did something for the convenience of the minibus passengers and also a better waiting environment. I have reviewed the operator and then to relocate the stop post slightly towards the rain shelter. Okay, so that's the update here. Okay, so here we go. This is the position. So if you count the number of posts between this minibus stop and the rain shelter, there's 8. And then this is the new position. So from 8 posts reduced to 6 posts. So that's the result. That's the accomplishment I managed to get by writing back and forth so many emails. Okay. And obviously our target is to move this over here. Okay. Now, after I got this reply from the school department, my initial thought was that okay, so there's this concern about obstructing the traffic. So maybe I was thinking, how about we draw some line between here and between the minibus stop and the rain shelter, so people will start line up in this direction, and then maybe during the rain, when the weather is rainy, there could be another sign suggesting okay, so when it's raining maybe we should start waiting here. So a way to gauge the situation so we can still somehow help make sure that everybody can start using or benefiting from the rain shelter. So this is my initial response. I said, may I suggest that some instruction could be provided so passenger can use the rain shelter Maybe lines could be drawn on the ground. A sign can be put up asking passengers to wait inside rain shelter when it is raining. I made my suggestion, but then I also remind them, given that very few people would use the rain shelter other than waiting for the minibuses, the government needs to do everything it can to make sure that this rain shelter is not a waste of payers' money. So basically, I'm constantly warn them that I can still bring this issue to ombudsman, to all the other channels to file my claim, because this is basically over a million Hong Kong dollars being used to build a rain shelter that nobody's going to use. You see what I mean? Okay, so that passage is a warning and ask them to do more about this. But then I actually CC this email to Neil Dunn, Mr. Neil Dunn. Just for your information, Mr. Neil Dunn is a frequent contributor to the MP letters column. And one thing that's very interesting about him is that most of his letters is on transportation. So you could think of him as an expert on transportation matters. And somehow I got connected with him through LinkedIn. I got his email. I even got his WhatsApp. So we had some discussion on the WhatsApp as well. So I did him, and then he wrote back. He said, mere action of traffic should not be the sufficient reason by itself not to use a rain shelter as a bus stop. It shows a preference for making people queue in the rain, sun, rather than delay a vehicle for a few moments, and they get seat the passengers and drivers sitting in the aircon. There's so many bus stops that block a whole lane in Hong Kong, even on a single lane two-way road. And but this particular road, the speed limit is 50 kilometers per hour. Not that busy. Stop for minutes or two, blah blah blah. But there's also other road solution available. I'm surprised this were not discussed in the reply. Okay, so when I got this email is in the evening, I was so excited because I feel like it's such a right move to include nail down in the whole. Okay, and this is a really important point I want to make, which is if you want to pressure the government on thing, you don't want to just rely on yourself, rely on the team or your teacher. You have to engage as many people, as many stakeholders as possible, especially those with expertise. All right. Yeah. So that's why and here's a successful case. Nailed down a frequent contributor of MP and with expertise on transportation, and he offered brilliant input and insights on this case. Okay, with his email and his view shared, I decided that I need to be more affirmative. I need to be more aggressive. So I write another email to the transport department. This time I actually see the commissioner of the transport and also the head of the home affairs department, just to give them a little bit more pressure. Here you go. I refer to Mr. Neildown's comments on the matters, and I took the picture. So this is the picture I took. You can see this is a school bus being stopped right here, and then there's another bus that we pass by. So I don't see there's any obstruction here, because if you see the line here, actually the school bus was not blocking any traffic at all. So what I'm saying is that if the minibus would stop right here, and it may be people waiting in the rain shelter have to come out to board the minibus or whatever, it's going to work, right? And there's no blocking of obstruction at all. Here's another point. If you want to try to help solve or address neighborhood issue, you have to go to the neighborhood. You have to collect first-hand data, like what I did here. Take a picture in the morning when I was waiting for the minibus. Okay, so this is evidence. Okay, so I took the picture. You can see that the school bus did not obstruct the traffic, and the minibus post should be placed right next to the rain shelter. With all due respect, Ms. So's decision to move the post slightly towards the rain shelter did not address my concern at all. It only frustrated my attempt to help the community and made me wonder why the department wasted my time. Okay, so I got more. I think I'm more angry now and also disappointed. So I like this matter to be reviewed by a senior official of your section and a written reply as soon as possible. Grateful if you let me know the name and the name of the official who reviews the matter, referring to his or her record in the government telephone directory. So government telephone directory should not be strange to you. And basically, this is a wonderful resource, right? So if you go to any department, you will be able to actually get to know like the head of the department's email and you can look at the civic division and also the emails and phone number of all the individual staff members. And usually what I do is I was talking with the staff member, whoever is talking to me on the matter. If I'm not happy, I will go up to their seniors and then their seniors and go all the way to the head of the department just to build up the pressure. Okay. So that's why now I'm asking for the name. Okay. They don't necessarily have to give you the name, they just give me the section. That's good enough because then I will go after the head of the section. All right. And then I also ask them for the geospatial data of all the rain shelter and bus stops because that's something I suggested in the MP letter. And again, I refer to the colon access information. I don't know whether they're going to provide the data, but I will try. Okay, so that's actually the current progress of the. I think yesterday I got an email from Miss So from Transport Department, and she just acknowledged my email and said she will reply later. Now, the question we need to think about is whether it's worth the because all we are doing here is trying to move this little minibus stop for a couple of meters, right? And you see all the emails back and forth. I have to spend time writing. I have to be engaged with this different officials, different department, government department. So obviously, this is a fairly time consuming process. So it's time consuming for me, and it's also time consuming for the government. So, how much time and effort should we devote to solving neighborhood issues? I think that's a personal decision, right? If you care about neighborhood issue, by all means, you want to spend more time on this. But for me, as a teacher at the university level, I feel like my time can be better spent on some more important issues such as climate change, or maybe build a smart city in Hong Kong, or how to improve and enhance public health. So that's my priorities there. But still, I think it would be very interesting and also valuable if we can try to figure out a feasible and effective approach to negotiating with the government on neighborhood issues. So this is no longer just a one minibus and rain shelter. I'm talking about a general mechanism through which an ordinary resident of Hong Kong might be able to negotiate with the government. This time it's a rain shelter, next time it could be something else. It's another neighborhood issue. So how can you build arguments and leverage all the resources that we have access to, like South China Morning Post, fellow letter writers, and all the reasonings, all the arguments we can make, and hopefully eventually we can accomplish something. And I don't know, maybe eventually the transport department would still refuse to do it. They can use the same reason and say we don't want to move this because it's going to obstruct the traffic. And then what am I going to do? Maybe I'll try again and contact officials at higher level, or maybe I can contact the legislative council, maybe I can contact the media. I will try and I will see. The thing is, if we believe we have a strong argument, if we believe this is reasonable, then we should try everything we can to pressure the government to do the right thing. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do here, and hopefully I can then share my experience. Other people who are also interested in serving the community, or even counselors, so that they can negotiate with the government more effectively. All right. So here are some open questions. What will it take to relocate the minibus pole? Again, we don't know yet, but maybe in a few weeks I can share more info with you. And also, what will it take to make the geospatial data for all the rain shelters and bus stops available? Again, I don't know. I'm waiting for a reply from the Home Affairs Department and Transport Department, but I'm not that optimistic. Most likely, they're going to say, hey, this is data we have, or this is data held by the third party, blah, blah, blah. On the one hand, I'm not optimistic in the short term. I don't think the data will be available this year or next year. But I think in the long term, I'm on the right direction. I'm on the right side of the history because open data is a trend, and empowering society and community with open data, that's the right thing to do. Okay. Will the Legislative Council help? Will the Ombudsman help? What about Chief Executive's office? Again, we have to try. Okay, we need to try all these different tactics and strategies to pressure the government to get what we want. And I think this whole process would be very useful. More people can join the the process, and more people can learn from the process and to join the efforts to improve the community. Okay, so in general, I feel quite ambivalent when I'm working on this project. I think I'm encouraged by the Home Affairs Department staff because I think they were quite helpful, but I'm disappointed with the department staff because they were not very helpful. And I think moving the minibus pole is not such a big deal. And I'm also emboldened by the input and support from Mr. Neil Dang. And I hope I can find more people like him who can join my efforts, who can support me when I negotiate with the government. And I stay hopeful that Mr. Patrick Moore and other councillors can be more persuasive, can be more forceful to when they negotiate with the government. And finally, I think I'm very determined to work on this project and maybe some other projects related to neighborhood issues because I want to inspire more young people to serve the local community. Okay. So, in terms of discussion, I like each group from both Thursday and Friday section to comment on the specific points made in this video. And hopefully, you can send us some questions and also your thoughts on the questions so that during the class meeting we can have a little bit discussion.